Wednesdays are my get too caffeinated days. I'll get fucking high on coffee.
I've been trying to draw back on the caffeine.
Really?
Yeah. It's just like apparently can like cause some weird side effects with women.
I'm sure.
Like I'm like cystic too, so it's not supposed to help with that.
Yeah.
But I love coffee.
Yeah.
I love coffee. So
Well,
I've been trying to do tea, but
it doesn't
I love
scratch
coffee.
the same itch.
No.
The wife and I got an espresso machine. Espresso. I've caught so much shit for saying espresso. They're like, you degenerate. I'm like, I'm just trying to get weird. Fuck y'all. But
That's what people that don't have an espresso machine say.
yes, exactly. So now that I'm in the club, I need to class it up a little bit. Lydia Shae, what's kicking, player?
Oh, nothing much. Just got a lot going on. Busy year.
That's for damn sure. You've been kicking the fucking door in, sister. I've been excited to watch it, and I really appreciate you reaching out to come kick it today.
Yeah, of course. Like I said, I've been watching and I've been following you on social. I don't know how I first came across it, but I think it was through these. And I love the show. I love it because you do a lot of local music, and I find a lot of local people through you, which is cool.
And for me, it's been so nice that when you appear on someone else's page, you always find somebody new out of it. It's like when we spend all of our time promoting my shows, my songs, my shows, my songs, it gets so repetitive with the people you see, and your fan base never really starts to include people outside of your own sphere.
Yeah.
And so through just being a fan of other people and helping show folks that listen to me the things that I'm interested in, it's really helped propagate a new appreciation for the whole scene. Like you were kind of talking about with going to the Southgate House open mic. It's like there's so much more to be found in our music community than we give it credit for.
Yeah, and you wouldn't think that a small town, I mean, Cincinnati's mid-sized, but it's not big enough to feel like there would be all these different pockets of music community that you don't know. So
Yeah. And did you grow up in the city then?
I didn't grow up in the city. I grew up like 45 minutes east. Out in Brown County.
Nice. Okay,
Yeah.
so that explains why you're around like Jimmy and those guys.
Well, it's funny. Brown County it feels like it's kind of out there. I did not know any of those guys. It wasn't until I moved to Mount Washington, I literally stumbled across Crooner Circus because it's a stone's throw from where I live now. And I was like, this is so cool. A songwriter round. Like when I was playing music and living in Louisville, I just didn't see any of that. There was a lot of local band venues, a lot of original music, but not anything songwriter focused. So that was like immediately like, I want to meet these people. I want to make songwriter friends.
Yeah.
I want to be a part of this. And Noah Smith is from Brown County. And that was like...
Very proudly.
Yeah. And I was just like... Why can't I like meet anyone outside of this county? Even though like when I was there, I didn't know any of them. And Michael Moeller, he lives out around my stomping grounds now. It's crazy to hear that there's so much music coming from a town when I felt like when I lived there, I like couldn't find friends that wrote songs or played music like I did. And now here they all are.
Yeah. Well, I think there's something to be said about like when you answer the songwriting call in your life, it's kind of because you need to be the person that listens to you. It feels like you're the only one in a lot of those ways. And there's something about the isolation of, I got these songs in my head that need to go somewhere, where you really need to just kind of lock yourself in a bedroom and go after it like that.
Yeah.
But then when you're finding bandmates and things like that, it feels like you're the only one that writes songs for a little while. It's a very odd experience.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. I mean, songwriting was something that was very internal and personal to me in the sense that I wrote songs, I shared them with my family. As I mentioned before this, my family's very musical, so super supportive and really want to be involved. I mean, my graduation gift when I graduated high school was my dad took me to a studio and paid for me to record all my originals, which is like amazingly encouraging.
Yes.
But I went to college and I'm a graphic designer by trade. So I chose like kind of the studio art graphic design world when choosing between my two creative loves. And songwriting was still something that happened in the background because I can't stop it. It's like writing in a diary.
Yeah. Is your day job right now graphic design?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And what's that kind of like?
So I've been working in like the agency world for probably 8 years. I moved into freelancing 4 months ago.
Congrats.
At this point, thank you. And just wanted to like give myself more freedom. I also was recording my current album, and it was just it's like a full-time gig. It's a 13-track album. It is too long and too much hours.
Yeah.
For me to take on and also be working a really demanding job.
And that 13 songs, did you have 13 and you wanted to cut 13, or did you kind of narrow down the list to 13?
Believe it or not, I narrowed to 13.
At least you did that, though. It's like, if you end on 13 and you still feel like it's a lot of songs, it's like, well, sometimes these things just need to come to light whether you like it or not, you know? And if you already made your kids go to the chopping block, you know?
I know. And it was just like, you know, I am very used to in the graphic design world of, I hate this term because it feels very violent, but killing your darlings.
Yeah.
Where you're working in the corporate world as a creative, clients are not going to like your ideas. You have to be detached. And I'm less so like that with songwriting because I feel like for me it's a lot more personal. I'm not creating for anyone else, I'm creating for myself. So I am a little more tied to them, but still the idea of being like, this doesn't make the cut. It's not good enough.
Yeah.
It's a little more natural to me.
And that's such a blessing to be. Is this your second studio project since you had done your high school recording, or is this? So
it's technically my second studio project, but it's the first like published album that
you didn't put it online.
I didn't. So at the time, it's on.
What the hell?
It's on SoundCloud.
Okay, all right. You
so
trapping?
It's online, but this is so horrible. It's on SoundCloud under my dad's name because we didn't know how to use it, and he just like created an account and like put it on there for me, so it's like under his name.
Yeah.
And it's like this candid photo. It's just not it.
Have you referenced it at all during this process to kind of A/B your life and your writing?
I actually have one song from that project that I wanted to revamp with a full band, and it is on this album.
Which one is it?
It's called No Good For You.
Cool. So if you like No Good For You, you got to go digging on the internet. You want to push your dad's name out there just so they can find this, or you want them to have to dig?
Oh, yeah, you can find it.
Okay,
it's
cool.
Darren Tissander.
Okay.
So it's like not even a convenient last name. It's Tiss.
When I saw your email, I was like, my God, like I can't understand why it's Lydia Shae.
It's yeah, for several reasons. But so that's on SoundCloud. If anyone wants to really get down to my roots of 10 plus years ago and check it out.
It's a great thing to be able to see, though. And I mean, we all have judgments of our work as we come up. And like one thing that you probably feel through the recording process that I beat my head against a wall is like, by the time I finish the song, I know so much more than when I started the song.
Yeah.
And when you build a house of cards of subjective choices, you can just flick that bottom one out and start fresh again. And you're like, no, I know more about how I'm working with this microphone, so I want to recut the whole thing. And you keep doing that in song one. You never make it to 2, let alone 13. It's like,
yeah,
you just got to start making headway.
Yeah, and I think that that's really where the, progress, not perfection, has had to come into play, because I mean, even right now we're going through the process of mixing and mastering the album, and there's a certain point where I'm like, should I have recorded backing vocals on this? Like, X, Y, and Z, start questioning these choices, and I just need to stop tinkering, because I could tinker forever and it would never be done.
Yeah.
But, it's a good product. I'm proud of it. I'd be happy for it to be out there. And sometimes you just need to learn when to let it go.
Yeah, and that's tough when you have so many layers that you could touch up. Yeah. Like the background vocals were a lot of fun, especially one thing I'll say about the 4 you sent me is like they have a more hard rock appeal than I would have expected just from the couple of videos that I've seen of you playing acoustic.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I think on that first track it has like some more heavily distorted background vocals that sometimes it's unison, sometimes it's trailing. And like it has such a great texture to bring to the song. And those things, most of the time, we apply too heavily. Like, I think you did it really tastefully there, but like once you find an effect, you you murder it, you know? Like, you go after your songs with it, and it's tough to take your hand off and say like, oh no, that one time was enough to use this.
Yeah. Inspiration artists have been really instrumental in me measuring like success against. So I think if I were stuck in a room and I could just like do whatever I wanted, it would probably go a little haywire. But I think having projects in mind of like, you know, I love these 6 albums, I really like how they sound, wanting to borrow brilliance from different things, has been not only a great, you know, creative source, but also a great control of like knowing when something is enough and like how far to push personalities of certain songs.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't know how valuable reference tracks are going into that bit. It's like, not only are these pieces of contour of learning how you like the shape to work out, but like you said, to know when it's enough to hear how your heroes played into these things. Like, you need to supply yourself with a Spotify playlist that you put on rather than listen to that song for the 16th time. Go compare it to the things that you want to compare it to. Is that something you learned a lot from your graphic design work, or is that something you've always known in music? Like, I want to sound like that, and this had a baby, and I need to make that thing happen.
I would say it's probably more design, honestly. I've been trained to find references, find inspiration brands, to build up almost like a case study of, you know, success examples. And then also, I don't do this with music, but with design, like some things you want to stay away from that maybe we're still successful, but are like too far. Like this isn't authentic to us.
Like, why is the Tide logo so gaudy? Like, why you gotta look so shitty with your stain removers, you know?
Oh, abrasive colors for abrasive stains. But it's... But I think that naturally that approach to problem solving, I just default to with music because it's like my way to think through a problem. I also will say, having bandmates and also having a sound engineer asking you questions about music that doesn't exist yet was really instrumental to me being like, okay, yeah, I need to pull examples. I need to be able to explain to them what I have in mind and how do you use verbal communication to describe something auditory.
Yeah, unless you have great fluency in the language of music where it's like, no, I want you to come out and you got to play triplets on the snare and I need you to sub. It's like, it's much easier to point and say it like that than it is to say, I want you to do exactly this. And I have great appreciation for folks that can do a little bit of all that. Like, have you gotten to meet Nick Heffron before?
Yes, I have, but I don't remember where.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, probably with Adam Lee from Sunday Drives. You know,
yes, I do know Adam.
And Nick is a wonderful utility player in bands, but he's also a great songwriter. So the other day when he came over here, we were talking about one of his tracks. I was like, why don't you just cut a demo? And we could have him go from guitar to bass to drums to keys to filling in the rest of the vocal. Yeah. And when you're someone that's unencumbered to create the whole thing, like my greatest influence is Prince, and I love that most of Prince's work is unencumbered by excessive opinions. Like, I don't need 5 people fighting about what this should be. When you have a really good band that understands you, you can show them this thing and they do it, and that's awesome. But it's also great when you're just capable of doing so yourself, you know, because no one else is going to understand exactly what you want.
Yeah, definitely. That's so true. I mean, I'm also very fortunate. So you kind of mentioned, like, you know, having the expertise in vernacular. I do not. I grew up in bluegrass, and nothing is electronic in bluegrass. So the whole gearhead side of things is so foreign to me. It's not even funny. I'm very lucky because I got connected through, you know, friends of friends to my current band members. So Zach Sabatelli is our drummer, and then
What a great name.
I know, so Italian. And then Josh Belcher is our guitarist, and they both have like a combined background knowledge of gear and music that I just do not have. So they've been super instrumental in being able to like not only teach me about that side of music, but also we kind of have hive mind at this point, help communicate some of the things that we've talked about to like our sound engineer, Andrew, who also is playing bass for us. So it's been, I've been very fortunate to have like very, very positive, cooperative people in my process of like creating this album, who have kind of filled the gaps and like bridged my knowledge into areas that like I could not go by myself. But then also I feel like just have a really, really honed in idea of what we want this album to be, and like creative opinions are all meshing.
And as a solo artist has kind of filled in their band, have you always assumed them to be more hiring type of help, or are they band members that'll be here kind of long term, not to ask for like a
no, like more the second. So when we had, this is so funny, the whole reason this started was because last year in March I used to be in a band called Hawks in Louisville that's like very kind of 70s soft rock. They would hate to hear me say this, but like Eagles. There was a big joke about like whether or not the Eagles were good. Like the band was split half and half.
What?
Half of them hate the Eagles, half of them love the Eagles. But
except the people who don't like the Beatles or like the Stones, like, well, guess what? You know, popular opinion says your opinion is invalid here.
It's very Big Lebowski of them, but you know, Bad Company, like all that kind of whole sector of music, which was like not at all what I was writing towards, but very much enjoyed being a part of. So they had asked me to come open for one of the shows that they were doing in Louisville. And I was like, yeah, sure. Sounds good. At this point, I'm just doing acoustic stuff. The lineup comes out and it's like a 4-band lineup and everybody's a band. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do with
I got
this,
fucking played.
Like, I just show up with my one guitar and like carry the energy. Like that is not going to work. So I had a friend, Austin Moore, who is like in a metal band called Desolate Remains, but at the time he wasn't, I don't think, yet doing that. And I was like, please help me. Like, please join me and do this gig in Louisville. And we need to find a guitarist. And he worked with Josh. So he connected me with Josh and was like, I think I found a guitarist, which Josh at the time was in a band called Only. And it was like a short-term cob together a band for this gig. And then I had another one. I was opening for my friend Daniel, who was like rebranding and coming out with his debut album under Daniel Noel. He used to be Daniel in Stereo. Yeah. Awesome guy.
And he's playing your show.
He is.
Yes.
So he had us open for his album release, and it felt like right to ask him to be a part of our lineup. But I had that show too. And I was like, all right, we got these 2 dates. We found a bassist, played those dates, and kind of like let people off the hook. Austin went to do like metal, which like that dude just wants to play. He just wants to like bang hard, and like he's awesome. He's so great. I felt like I was being like, but country drums. Like, it's not his heart, what he would be playing if he could like have his pick. So he went on to do that. But at the time when we played at Madison Live for Daniel's show, Josh's other band Only came to see us, and they were like, this is really cool. We have a drummer who would be interested. We hear you're losing your drummer. And that's how we got Zach.
Very cool.
So from there, it was like, all right, well, I'm going to record. Would you guys want to help me record? And they were like, yeah, because every musician is just like a giver I've met. Mm-hmm. And so we started really practicing together and almost like co-writing the production of the songs, because I don't know what it sounds like with a full band. I've never played them with a full band. And it just became like so collaborative. They have so instrumentally shaped what the end result of these songs sound like. We mesh so well together. Everybody gets along that it just became very clear that like this is going to be a long-term thing. To the point where we've agreed like we're going to, release this album, hopefully do like a mini tour off of this album, and our next venture will be like collaboratively actually writing songs together from like the ground up. Because
Very nice.
Josh writes and everybody writes. Like we're all sending each other little things that we're writing. So I am like very hungry to dive into that because it sounds like so much fun.
Well, it's also nice to be able to write with different categories of where it lands.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes you write things that just inevitably they don't feel like what would be next for Lydia Shae. This doesn't follow this album as well as it might fit in a new category.
Yeah.
So having people that can help you tinker with those things, and also the way that when you collaborate, things just start to catch people's thumbprint and sound like us instead of me, instead of you. It's such an interesting way of letting the songs and the arrangements kind of breathe in that.
I mean, you pointed it out. You were like, I was not expecting this.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it to be so heavy.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that about it, because when it's just acoustic guitar and vocal, it can go 1,000 different ways. And I've tried over time, as songwriters, when we hear someone do that, you kind of start to picture other things behind it.
Yeah.
You know what the wallpaper could be and where the couch could go, and like you see the room for what it is. So when you get surprised by production, it almost makes the music more endearing, and it pulls you back to the vocal if things go well and whatnot.
Yeah, and I mean, there are sometimes certain songs that I write, like, so for instance, Comfort Queen, where I can play that acoustic, it sounds better with the band. That song is so angsty and like pissed off. It deserves to have drums. It deserves to have distortion in its guitar, and like everybody should be giving the listener hell. You know, it's just like it warrants it. And then there are other songs like Young Days that I also sent you where I don't see past the acoustic guitar in that. Essentially, like, I know where it should build. I know what I want the emotion to be. And that's where, like, I sat down with, Zach and was like, this is what I want the song to feel like. And he's like, got it. He can just take that and run with it. And then we weren't even going to have Josh electric guitar in that song. And we did it live for Oddfellows, I think. No, we did it at Southgate. And I was like, oh, this just sounds so good. We're going to have electric guitar on.
Yeah. Was that the one that has like that really pretty, like, it's like an arpeggiated part and then a little whammy bar, like just a touch of whammy bar,
I don't think he actually has whammy on it. Weston definitely does.
Okay.
And that's like a little bit heavier. Young Days starts where it began with like just acoustic.
Yeah.
And then everything kind of builds throughout. It's got violin in it. It's got
And your
mandolin
sister
in it.
plays the violin, your dad plays. That's pretty cool. Do you think there's going to be a family band iteration of your band in some of these songs at any point?
No.
Okay.
That would be my dad's dream come true.
Yeah, and you can't let him get his head inflated like that.
I know.
So,
I need to.
He'll never leave your life
If you're
alone.
watching this, Dad, it's not going to happen. But mainly because, my dad plays with me all the time still. Like, if I play a lot of solo gigs, cover gigs, 3-hour-long cover gigs, like, And if he is in town, or if it's like a Saturday and they're willing to drive up because they're still in Louisville, he'll just jump on and play with me. Because like I said, he's bluegrass. He doesn't know what music looks like on paper. He's like, what key is it in? And he will just go.
Yeah.
And it's awesome, and I definitely take advantage of that. But my sister, she's in college right now. She's up at IU. She's going for film. She's got, honestly, just better things to do than be in a family band with me.
If you work in film, though, and you play a beautiful violin, like, what an awesome way to score a film with solo violin.
I know. I'm going to say something to her. I did tell her, like, all Lydia Shae songs are fully available for you for your final projects.
You're always going to need to have the bangs so you can do that when you bring it up to her as well. It's like, that's the perfect amount of sass. But to have the access to play with parents, for music to connect you as peers and that kind of thing is such a beautiful opportunity for people to have.
Yeah.
And like you pointed out that drum set, it's like when my nephews come over here, like they're 3 and 5, I'm like, let's bang it out, like sit down, like we're doing this. And
Yeah.
you just don't get that kind of unspoken connection with people without music. Like,
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like when I watch basketball, you can kind of see that same type of like jazz-ish kind of fluency. But like just for two people to sit down and jam and just to be comfortable with wherever it goes.
Yeah.
It's a very romantic feeling that you don't get in many other parts of life. And to share that with your children is such a great blessing, you know?
Yeah. I largely, I mean, I don't want to be over dramatic, but feel like my dad is almost solely responsible for like cultivating that in me from a young age. When me and so I'm the middle child. I have a sister who's 2.5 years older than me. Then it's me, and then 10 years behind me is my youngest sister.
Nice.
So there was a time when it was just me and my older sister, and my parents had my older sister when they were 23, so young parents. My mom's in nursing school, dad's got us, and then mom and dad were also working like ships in the night, you know, working opposite schedules to make sure like we didn't have daycare. It's dad's night. What's he do with us? He takes me and my sister to like a bluegrass jam session. And it's like, I couldn't even tell you. It's so deep in my memory. I have no idea where it was. It's like median age 70. It's a potluck. There's all sorts of the nicest old people you'll ever meet, kind of like giving us cookies and like chatting with us and like hanging out. My dad's playing music on stage. We're in completely good hands. And then we get to a certain age and he's like, wants us to have something to do. So he teaches me and my sister a song. And the song that immediately comes to mind is In the Highways and the Hedges. It's like an old bluegrass tune, you know, in the highways and the hedges. And my sister singing, we're like harmonizing with each other, and we get there, we're like got our one song. Eventually we get on stage, we perform our little song, the old people love us. And then that just became the usual thing. And then dad's teaching us a new song, and we're singing in church, and then X, Y, and Z. And then I get into the age where he's putting me in piano lessons, he's putting me in banjo lessons, he's putting me in guitar lessons, and well, not guitar lessons because he played guitar, but he gave me his guitar. It's in this case.
That's the one you still play
his guitar.
That's awesome.
I know. He's never getting it back.
Yeah.
Like,
Did you ever pick any banjo though?
Oh, I played banjo, like middle school age. I got pretty good. I didn't stick with it. The banjo lessons were like an hour away. It was just a lot. And and it also, I wanted to write, and I was like writing on piano at that time. I was writing on guitar because piano was like too heavy to lug around. And just banjo like didn't fit into like my songwriting. So I think I just kind of fell out of interest with it. I did pick it up briefly. I had a stint where I was on American Idol, not like very far, but like far in production wise. Like I had to go to Chicago twice, and they loved that I played banjo. So they were like, brush up on banjo. This is going to be your thing. And I'm like, do I really want this to be my thing? Like,
it's so funny the way that people don't understand that as these shows go from open auditions to the end product, they're making stars for their own convenience.
Oh,
you know, like they're building the cast of Jersey Shore.
Yes.
And it's like, you are Banjo Girl. And you're like, are you kidding me?
I'm like, can I do better than Banjo Girl? But they also loved that I worked at Skyline. They were like, oh, that's so quintessential Cincinnati. And I was like, I'm Skyline and Banjo Girl.
Oh, my God.
This is probably for the best that didn't work out.
Yes. I think the best that can ever happen to you is you make it to second place on any of those shows. So you never have to sign a contract to be the thing that they've made you out to be.
Yeah.
Or else you get screwed over royalty in the long term with paying off all your master recordings and the publishing and the record deal that comes along with that. It's like, it's no good.
Yeah, they have all the power.
Yeah.
By the time you make it to the end, they're like, well, this is it. This is all you get.
And the first day you walk in, you know, you're wanting to be what they want to see, and they'll tell you what they want to see, and you slowly start to change yourself and make compromises on it. It's like, I think there's a great thing to be said about what you can gain from those shows.
Yeah.
If you already have your brand refined, but if you go in there just putty to be molded, they're gonna make you into some cookie cutter bullshit, and it's just gonna be what you're stuck with. Like, I tried The Voice when I was a kid, and I didn't get very far in that experience. But still, like the pressure you feel to appeal to them, when it's like you're not what they were looking for when you walked in, but they're gonna start to give you lines and mannerisms. They're gonna tell you how to dress. It's like, that's not how you make artists necessarily. It's worked a couple of times. We've gotten some Carrie Underwoods out of it and things like that, and that's
early on.
Yeah, exactly. And I think The Voice still has that kind of access, but like, you don't get many songwriters out of this thing. You know, you're not going to find folks that their material makes them who they are. You're going to make them NBC television's, side piece,
Yeah, it's all about the voice anyway, so there's kind of already a connotation with that about like what they're looking for.
Yeah. So when did you start writing for the first time? Is that at piano after the first couple lessons?
Probably not that close. I started piano at a pretty young age. It was the first thing that I did. My parents had, well, I had a keyboard at first, like everybody does. And then we had moved into a house that had like a larger basement. And my parents got a piano for free. Because honestly, you can get a piano for free now if you're willing to move it.
Yeah.
It was pea green painted upright piano. It was like, who would ever paint a piano this color? It was not cute. But that was my piano. And you can still find videos on YouTube of me playing it because my sister posted them and she forgot her password, and now they're on the internet forever.
Leaked.
Yeah, leaked.
Leaked, pun intended.
I know. It was like not long after that I started writing, probably in middle school. I think I have a piece of paper that's called My First Song, and I'm pretty sure I dated it, and it's pretty bad handwriting. I probably was like 10 maybe. And then in high school I was in a Christian rock band.
Nice.
And that was like my first time I actually got to like write songs and share them with people who like learned them, and then we played them. And I do have a CD. I should have brought it, given it to you as a consolation.
That would have been pretty neat.
But that was like, I was 15 when we were recording that. Great quality, really.
Yeah, who recorded this?
We recorded it out of Iron Wing Studio. Brandon Weaver was the sound engineer and owner of that studio. He was a cousin of our drummer.
Cool.
And I see him still out. He's still local. He's still around. And I don't know if he still has the studio or not, but we recorded there. I mean, it was like super cushy, way nice. I had no idea what kind of luxury I was experiencing as a young 15-year-old, but so that was kind of my first recording experience, and then my second one was my graduation gift, which that was done at like my dad has a friend who had a studio who's like a phenomenal bluegrass violinist, and he recorded us there, and that was more just like me, dad, and then we had a friend play bass on those, so it's pretty stripped down.
Yeah. Do you feel like having that recording experience at a young age helped shape how you looked at that process? You know, the simple things of getting comfortable with the red light starts and now you're going to be rolling on this.
Yeah.
You're working with a click track most of the time. You know what it's like to go through rough mixes to a master to asking for changes.
Definitely to an extent. I feel like the experience of actually recording and going through that, I was definitely more comfortable later doing it again and again. I don't honestly know how much input any of us gave for the rock album on like production, revisions. I feel like that was probably primarily done at the discretion of the sound engineer at the time, because like I don't even think I heard rough mixes.
Yeah.
I just like don't remember that.
It was just cut it and done.
Yeah.
But it's amazing when people are capable of that kind of thing too. Like up until a certain age, I never really understood the role of a producer. And my first 2 EPs we had done in Nashville, and I had an awesome experience of just like top-notch studio musicians taking things and finishing them on the spot.
Yeah.
And that was a really cool part of it, but it also felt like a lot of it was out of my hands. And then the first time I stepped up to bat to record in Cincinnati, I had a lot of input with musicians, but I fought a lot with my producer at the time. And we had a pretty solid working relationship. I at that time, we got along really well, even though we argued on a lot of things, and we were happy with the outcome. And eventually that situation ended in like a musical divorce, I would say. And then I started trying to do these things on my own. And doing that gave me such a higher appreciation for what that role is.
Yeah.
Because when you're trying to wear the hat of somebody else and also divide the lines between artist, producer, engineering of it, it's like, what makes these roles appealing and what's the actual job of each of them versus trying to do everything at once. It's like, because that's just fucking reckless. You know, you're going to drive yourself crazy. So has this most recent album been recorded in a more home setting? Or and what have you thought about that in comparison to a commercial studio?
I mean, it presents its challenges. So for instance, the home studio setting that we're recording in is like a connected duplex. So we can do things of a certain volume there. And then we did all the drums at my house in my basement. So there was like an element of, okay, will they fit? Take a picture of exactly how it's laid out so that we can replicate it for the I mean, Zach is amazing. He gets everything in like 3 takes max. It's ridiculous. Like, we could spend almost a whole session on like my crappy like guitar. And he's like, I think I can knock out 4 songs today. And we're like, that's great, man.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So we luckily, I think, only had 2 sessions for his full kit. We did some stuff with like a stripped down cajon, maybe some cymbals, some toms, and we were able to do that in the home setting of our sound engineer. Everything else, because like I'm like blessed to have a home now as of last year, and not be renting. So I was able to take advantage of like, okay, we can play till 9. I don't want to upset the neighbors, but I'm at least not connected to anything. I'm not giving anyone grief.
Yeah.
Plus, the kid 2 doors down plays drums, and we hear him all the time. So
if they got complaints, it's the
it.
neighbor kid.
It's a neighbor kid.
Yeah.
I don't play drums.
Why do you think I'm drunk out here yelling?
I know. So it's been like, it's had its challenges, but like everyone's been just very cooperative and flexible. And I think that there's a level of comfort and relaxation that comes from being in a home setting. Our sound engineer, Andrew, he's amazing, first of all, but he's also just so chill. So like feeling really relaxed and at ease, to be able to kind of give honest opinions. And he's really knowledgeable too. So relying on him for a second opinion on things has been really nice. And not feeling so much like I show up and I'm like in client mode.
Yeah.
Versus
and we got 2
collaborative.
hours, you know,
Exactly.
like to have that end time and say, okay, there's 15 minutes left.
Yeah.
So we want to try to nail some BGVs. We just want to move on without it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I do sometimes enjoy the pressure of you need this to be done before you walk in to record it. You know, you need to be tight enough that this can be done in a couple takes and we're moving on to the next song.
Yeah, and I will say, monetarily, that's been a pressure for me, is like getting, like, we have been very buttoned up and organized stepping into the studio. You know, I've got a ridiculous spreadsheet with like 40 tabs on it that nobody ever wants to see. That was like, here's every song, here's every instrument on that song, here's like everyone's role, inspiration tracks, like everything laid out as far as I could possibly plan. There is always that element of that's not working out. Let's workshop this right now, like this guitar solo or whatever, to feel happy about it. But for the most part, we've been able to step in, record.
Yeah.
And that's honestly because like I don't have the money to be like, I don't know, let's just explore it. Like, that's not where we're at. We got 13 songs to get through.
Totally. And also to be regimented about that, like if you start just getting lofty, you're going to end up playing with amp settings for an hour and playing with different guitar tones. Like there's so many rabbit holes to fall into that don't lead to the conclusion of we have finished songs here.
Yeah.
And that's a big danger.
Yeah.
Does the Excel sheet coming from a type A side of you, or is that just like your training in graphic design?
That is not graphic design.
That's just
graphic
you.
Designers notoriously hate spreadsheets. I have a little bit of a project management side to me, which I've had to use in certain roles, like if you don't have a project manager, but for the most part, that is like like a foundational part of who I am, where I am very forgetful. And if I do not have it recorded or written down in some way, it's like possibly gone from my brain. And I think it comes more from that, of a side of like wanting to make sure that like any idea or thought that we have is down somewhere so that I can refer to it. And then also collaborating with different people, I just wanted to like make it as easy on them as possible. So like, here's this sheet, here's a link to the demo, here's a link to the chord sheet, here's the inspiration track, like you can refer back to this at any time you need. You can see what percentage you are being completed, and just like take away additional stress that sometimes comes with like volunteering yourself for one of these projects.
Yes, absolutely. To show people how far they are from the finish line is very like to quantify, that's really difficult, but if you're capable of doing so, it makes the process so much less anxiety inducing.
Yeah, and my band got very into the percentage of completions.
We're 98, you better kick the door in.
They were seriously like, I want to make it to 50% this session. And they were so motivated by it that like, I was like, all right, I'm going to stay on top of these percentages, because they are looking at them and like are wanting to check that box.
Yeah. So take me into the weeds of how that looks, because that's honestly like, that kind of template could be very valuable to a lot of people in the music world.
Yeah, it's a standard Gantt chart.
Okay.
So
wait, I don't know what that means. I'm not going to nod along to that.
So I have the entire timeline of recording until launch laid out on a Gantt chart. And a Gantt chart is like every line item. And then, so it's like job or person, and then time.
Okay.
So I knew drums had to be done first. So Zach's got his own line item for drums. And he's got now until December 15th. We've got his sessions noted in there of when we're booked, and his percentage of completion as the date continues to move. Like, when I say the date, I mean like whatever day it is. Mm-hmm. So like, let's say it's the 10th now, he's at 90%. That's kind of being updated. So you can tell, not only did I need this because I wanted to make sure we were on track for launch, but I needed to think about everything to kind of see if there's any outages, and which that is so corporate of me to say outages. But yeah, we had a real huge realization that we completely left bass off of there, which for anyone who plays bass, I'm so sorry.
No, it's kind of how it is, though. It's like,
we don't have a bassist, so yeah. I just didn't think about it. Like, literally no one's writing bass parts. We know we want it. We knew Andrew was going to play it for us, because not only is he a sound engineer, but he's also a musician, and that's very, very fortunate. But I left him off at the timeline, and then we had to be like, okay, who do we think maybe we've overcalculated how many sessions they need, which vocals what ended up being what it was, because I can control that.
Yeah.
We'll give a few of those sessions to bass. You know, we might have to stretch into the early January to hit that. Plus, we have like people's vacations in there. We know, and you know, just like all of that. And then it was kind of like, all right, what's the mixing timeline? We need at least this many weeks. When do CDs physically need to be ordered so that we can have them in time for launch? And just like building out that whole timeline. And everybody knows kind of what their role is and like what they need to focus on. I just like needed that to like lessen my anxiety of knowing, are we going to have this finished and have this ready for the space that we booked, which is like a very real deadline.
And as you've kind of progressed through that, like there's a freedom once it's laid out in front of you of, oh, I just need to do my part, and I know exactly what my part is, versus like, I don't know when this can be finished. Like
Exactly.
like right now I'm sitting on a live album that I need to mix, and I got one production piece that I need to finish, and I'm about to record a buddy's band next week. It's like, so I'm gonna have to put this stuff off to the side, and I don't know when they're gonna get done, but they're gonna get done. That's for damn sure. But
yeah. And for a while, that's a lot of how this album was. It was like, when I had first started thinking about it, wanted it to be done. I mean, I started recording scratch tracks last summer, wanted it to be done in the fall. And it just became very clear that, like, that wasn't going to happen. I didn't have anything, like, really holding us to that deadline. It was more aspirational. And then eventually it was like, my goal was, this album has to be done before I'm 30. This is like my before I'm 30 goal, which is like this August.
Nice.
And you know, the year's like coming to a close. There's clearly no way it's going to be done in the fall. And I was like, okay, that's it.
Yeah.
Like, I talked to everybody. I was like, March, how's that feel? Booked Woodward. And then it became very real. It's like, here's a date. We have to hit this date. And then that was like enabled me to build out a timeline to be like, what do we need to do to make this a reality? And then now you just have to like do it.
Yeah. I think that's great advice. And like people that are, whether you're looking at your first gig or you're looking at your album release, putting that in writing and starting to publicize it, because it needs to go out at some point, is how you get your ass in motion.
Yeah.
Or else there's this lofty feeling of like, oh, I could reschedule it. You know, it's just on my calendar. It's not on their calendar, so we can just keep going. What was it like to book Woodward?
Well, no one else would really book me. So it was kind of funny. The big problem I feel like now in this day and age is that everybody wants to see your music. Everyone's like, send me your Spotify link. You know, what other stuff do you have? And for me, it was like, well, this is my debut album. I don't have anything to send you, but, and I don't mean to like throw any shade at like any venues. They're just, you know, they're looking out for themselves. They're booking people that they have proof and evidence will bring people.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a digital footprint to showcase that, then like, I don't blame them. But I was reaching out to venues that I had played at before with like other people, brought in good crowds for. They don't remember me. They were just like blowing me off.
Yeah.
They were just like, where's your music? And I was like, well, this is a debut. And then I just never hear from them again. Even though I was sending them videos of us performing, I was sending, you know, all of my accounts, all of like my social. It just like wasn't enough to like, I wasn't legitimate enough. Woodward is a venue that also does events. So I could book them and they don't care if it sells because I'm paying to have a show there.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what this is. Like, I'm booking it out, fronting my like personal money to like hold this date and have an event there. And they're kind of like, you can still do sales. We'll treat it as like a regular concert, but like they're essentially not taking on any risk. And I have faith that like we can sell the tickets. So it was kind of, you know, in a weird way, almost like planning our wedding, where I've like found a venue and I found all these things and I'm just like a paying customer to them. And then I can make my money back if I can. And if I can't, it's no sweat off of them.
Yeah. And diffusing that risk is a big part of it because every room is taking a risk when they go 50-50 or 70-30 on a show.
Yeah.
Like when I got kicked off of Instagram a couple of years ago and I had spent, I have no idea why. They never told me why. I couldn't get a reason, couldn't get any help. I begged for 6 months to get it back and I was like, I just got to get back on Instagram with a new page. But I went from having 4,500 followers that I'd spent a lot of time working on to nothing. to absolutely nothing. It's like, it was my main social media. It was like
brutal.
So then I'm having trouble getting booked at places that I'm used to. I've lost all my connections to whether it's house shows or whether it's rooms that know me. It's like we have no record here to go off of.
Yep.
So then you have to find other ways to appeal to them quickly.
Yeah.
Whether that's you putting your cash up and saying like, hey, I know what I'm worth. I know I can do this. And I don't think enough artists consider that an option, because folks don't realize how much investment it takes on the front end to get things moving in a certain direction. It's like it's a chunk of change that people wouldn't understand the number if you told them the number. But then if you quantified how you can make it back, how many tickets you need to sell to break even, it's like now it starts to be reasonable.
Yeah.
You know, there's a feasibility in this that has a quantified end result, and you tick away at that one after another after another.
Yeah.
Because not a lot of folks understand that in the game of making fans and relationships and finding real supporters, it's like, this isn't like, it's never an overnight thing. It's not 5 at a time. It's not 3 at a time. It is 1 at a time, and you find out what people bring to the table. Is this a fan that has financial support to offer you in the forms of tickets, or is it someone that wants to go put up posters in a new part of town because they love what you do and they want people to come see you?
Yeah.
You know, or is it just an online friend that's always going to be in the comments and that's what they can do?
Yeah. I mean, fans have been awesome. It feels weird to call them fans because, like,
in this
at
setting,
this stage, you know, I know them all personally.
But you should, you know, and that's why they're there.
They're
early adopters is what you're going to call them, because they have a much more particular buy-in to what the product is, you know. And seeing yourself as a product is also a weird part of that, but it has a value, so now you can quantify these are customers and this is what they're buying into.
Yeah, but I mean, we've gotten gigs from fans who have just like recommended us to other artists that they also like. And it's like, thank you. That is very, very nice, because you know, introductions and handshakes are just like a huge part of getting anything booked. So like, have someone that believes in us and likes us enough that they're like, this other musician would value what they add and they'll bring people to your show, is like the nicest compliment you could have.
And folks that are at that top tier of supporting that, you know, there's artists at the top of their game, and then there's fans at the top of their game. And people don't understand how beneficial they are to what we do by just supporting the way that they like to. Like, do you know Susan through Noah?
Yeah.
Gives the best hugs in the game. Like, she's the sweetest person I've probably ever met in this. And she shows up whether she's the only person there or she is at the front row of 75 people that I begged to be there.
Yeah.
And you can't make that kind of thing happen with people. It's just who they are.
Yeah.
So when a community of artists gets to know them and gives them credit where credit is due, then you start to see that kind of ethos, that kind of supporter propagate into more people. They're like, if I love them like their family, then they're going to give me that back.
Yeah.
You know, if you reach for your favorite artists to be people above the 50,000 followers mark that sell out bigger rooms in Woodward, or they come through and they're opening acts, like, you don't get to have that personal relationship.
Yeah.
So one of the few things that you have to give that the majors don't have to give is your time on a set break.
Yeah.
You know, or the interaction between shows, whether it's online or in person. It's like, I've shown up to birthday parties and played a tune. I'm not above that. It's like, if you're there and we're hanging out and you're the only person at my show, we might go smoke a joint together. Like, I want to have that time with you because you gave me that time in your life. But then there's a really weird thing there where you're not best friends that can give a call in the middle of the night about this or about that.
Yeah.
But what you have to give is your music and your person and the space at your shows when you got it, you know?
Yeah, and it's funny, as much as there is just like this really, really great networking community of musicians in Cincinnati that are writing and performing and just like being there for each other, promoting each other. I'm also surprised by, there is this core group of just hardcore music lovers that love original music and love people that are writing, that just show up like absurd amounts at every gig. Like, there are people that are not musicians that go to like 4 shows a week. And I just really was not expecting that. And I've gotten to meet some of those people because they come to everything. You can't not meet them. And they're just like the core of this community. And I don't know if they know how important they are to like the local music scene, but I feel like everybody that's writing feels like a burst of, okay, I'm doing something that like somebody's benefiting from or like is resonating with somebody because these people keep showing up.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. I was not expecting that.
You feel seen for what you want to be seen for. And like, it's, again, going back to like your product, there's a value proposition of what this is worth to you. And when you see people make the most of that, then it has value to both of you.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of days where you write, you bust your ass, you put out a record, and if it doesn't hit 1,000 streams, then they say you're a loser and you don't get any fucking money for that.
Nothing. Yeah.
And it's like, so am I supposed to value my own success based on that? Or can you show me that 115 streams and say that's enough?
Yeah.
Because in some ways, no, it's not enough. But if it's 50 unique listeners that stepped up and gave your song 2 plays, just 2 chances to be in their life, that means something.
Yeah.
And the more that we embrace that in our small pocket of the world, the more you start to find that the interaction between artists and listeners and artists to other artists and listeners to other listeners, there's a culture there. And one thing that's always held us back in Cincinnati from a Nashville or an LA or a New York, places that have listeners that are proud of their local music. And they don't say, oh, it's a Cincinnati artist, like I don't need to go fucking see them.
Yeah.
They say, no, this is one of our bands.
Yeah.
This is one of our sounds and our pieces of this. Like for me, See You in the Funnies, Jimmy's band.
Yeah.
Jimmy's band was so popular with my college friend group. And when other folks were bringing in like Mount Joy or Chance the Rapper, I'm showing them the funny stuff. And not only do they compete, they supersede bands at the highest level because they feel approachable.
Yeah.
I know I can go shotgun a beer with Josh if I want to.
Yeah.
It's like these people are in your life and they're accessible.
Yeah, and accessibility in the music industry right now is like kind of this like rare, awesome thing. You almost, I mean, I hate this because like I want to advocate for like everyone's success. Like if you're making it in the music industry, that's awesome. But the reality is that if you make it past a certain threshold, I probably can't get tickets for your show because of third-party ticket scammers. Like there are living legends that I am in the same time with that I'll never get to see because of like Ticketmaster.
Yeah.
And local music is such a accessible thing for people who just like music, and like there's quality local music here, that it makes a lot of sense because like there's people that I would love to see, but you know, it's just not going to happen, and I'll have to listen to their stuff and just support them from a distance. They're doing fine because they've made it to that point, but like there's something that's just really, really nice about getting in a small room and being right next to somebody who's creating something, and that person being like accessible and like the tickets being affordable and or free, and hey, if you want to support me, buy a shirt. Like that kind of experience I feel like is something that's almost exclusively like whittling down to local music at this point.
Yeah. Well, it's a tough nut to crack in that. And one thing that you touched on is like what artists have to offer each other is it's a very unique proposition. It's like the reason I like doing this show is because I feel like I have something to share with my friends. I get to make content about them. And I get to show them to a listener basis that may have not known them before. And the same thing with the muse. It's like I want to spend a Wednesday night together, and the people that I can bring in, the people that you can bring in, are going to get to see each other as folks that are sharing in a joint experience of what this is. We're in the corner of a brewery. It may not be the intimate show with the beautiful stage and the LED lights, but fuck it, we got a fog machine and we got beer, so let's make this thing happen.
Yeah.
So over time, whether it's an open mic or a songwriter's night or your album release show, which give them the date really quick.
March 8th.
March 8th at the Woodward Theater with Daniel Knoll. And do you have another opener on that show?
Yeah, the Loreleis are going to be there too. I don't know if you've met them.
They're playing the Songwriters Night next Wednesday, so I finally get to meet them.
Well, then you will meet them. They're great.
They got a banjo in the band too, right?
Yeah, so he's like clawhammer banjo. She, I think, is like definitely learning guitar, but I don't know if she's performing with it yet. But they're just this great little folk duo, writing their own stuff, singing together. They're just like, I just want to put them in my pocket and carry them with me everywhere I go.
Thank God for her cell phone. She can do that without shrinking them.
I know. They're super, just honestly so nice too.
Yeah. Well, and I think in time, as our music community progresses, like the things that we can really share is like tour networks. It's like you're about to go out and promote this new album. It's like, it's hard to make an appeal to a bunch of out-of-towners why you're worth going to see. But if we can share the rooms they're willing to put you as a middle act between two locals, that makes a difference. Or if you have the clout to take someone from Cincinnati with you, like, do you know Tommy Lee?
I don't think so.
So she and I worked on her first EP together last year. Then she did a run with us in the Carolinas. And she was intimidating to go on after. Like, she fucking murdered these rooms. And I was so thrilled about it because, like, you don't have a lot to offer other artists, you know, like, but if you have listeners that will give them a chance, and those listeners find something new that they love, it's not subtracting from the fact that they love you, but the fact that now they look more at the little town you come from, and they say, well, what else does Cincinnati have to offer me?
Yeah.
You know, even though Spotify can be a little bit of the devil at times, when you go to, like, artists, listeners also like, you can see a lot of the people that we spend all this time with.
Yeah.
And it's no coincidence that we end up in these pages together, because Cincinnati has a thumbprint on you the same way that your producer has a thumbprint on the album.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's been, so I had my first single come out, when was that? Like a few weeks ago. But what's been very, very cool is seeing on my own page, people also like, and it just being all Cincinnati musicians.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, local people support local music in person and like they genuinely like to listen to it. I feel like that's such a great test when you're not listening to me because I'm in a lineup and you like somebody else. You're like returning to listen to me when you don't have to.
Yes.
And you know, what a compliment.
Well, do you know Kyle Hackett?
I don't think so.
You would love Kyle Hackett. He's fucking phenomenal. Me and Kyle have been friends since he was probably 15 and I was 14. And he was my #1 album of last year. And it's not because I like the dude. It's just, it was the album that I was like, oh, this is on every set break I take. This is on every road trip I take.
Yeah.
This is on when I go to the gym and I just need to walk it out on a treadmill for a little bit. It's like, you never know who's going to be the most influenced by your work.
Yeah.
And when it's your neighbors, when it's people that are around, it feels so much better because I can't thank the people that make an album with Prince. You know, I can't sit down with them. But last week I had the guy that produced that album on. It's like, to be able to sit across a desk and say thank you for what you did for my life, it's so much more resonant. And as much as the internet has opened us up to talk to people from across the world, there's something about in-person authenticity that you can't get through a FaceTime call or an Instagram Live.
For sure. Definitely.
Yeah. So with this beautiful master schedule that you've laid out, has there also been like your behind the scenes work of the graphic design that went into the album and all that?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So as a designer, like it's one of the primary ways I can save on costs is designing my own stuff. And it's painful because like everyone always bemoans designing their own brand, because as a graphic designer you kind of also have to do that because you have a portfolio website and your resume and all that. And like we're always notoriously redesigning our own personal brands because in a year I'm gonna look back and be like, I've grown so much, this is horrible, I need to redo this. So I've had a lot of time to kind of sit and think about my visual identity as an artist and what that should look like and what parts of me personally versus what parts of genre influence. And that's been a whole process, which has been, I've been very thankful that I have the ability to do that. But at the same time, there's been times when I'm like, I just want my friend who's a great designer to do this for me because I like everything that they do. And I'm very self-critical of my own design.
Yeah.
But it's been nice. It's been like really kind of having to synthesize who I think I am as a musician, being forced to sit and reflect on that a lot, and create assets that I feel like are going to resonate with people who don't know who I am and give them a sense of who I am, or like represent the album. Like I came up with like a whole kind of visual identity for the album release and the show that I've been like going to. We're designing merch now that's going to be reflective of that visual identity, and it's going to be associated with it. If we do a tour in the summer, maybe it's a different brand. Maybe it's like a more summery type of thing going on, but
Yeah.
that's been a whole process, and it's been a lot of hours by myself staring at a computer and looking at pictures of myself.
Which that'll drive you crazy. That's such an odd thing. And it is, certain parts of this are better to delegate than others. And my buddy Ed was on the show a couple weeks ago. He's like, if you're not great at it, don't do it.
Yeah.
Because the amount of money you're saving is going to be a loss of quality on this side of it.
Yeah.
And sometimes I believe that, and other times I'm like, if you look at what you make from the materials themselves, you need to quantify that and how much you're going to put into it. Like, quit making $10,000 records and making 1,000.
Yeah.
You know, you got to be understandable about that. Also, with the merch, it's such a pain to have physical copies in hand, whether it's CDs, T-shirts, stickers. Like, one of the reasons that my upcoming tour, I just announced it today, one of the reasons that I'm going with my EP's tour materials, because I got a fuck ton of posters I haven't used. It's like, I'm not going to pay to redesign this, reprint this, and roll out when I got a bunch of really nice, inkjet copies that I need to use.
Yeah.
So being understanding to the self about, like, even though I want to reinvent the wheel, I'm not going to go tearing shit apart.
Yeah, it's tough. And like merch is like the easiest way that we make money.
Yeah. 100%.
It is like once we first started rolling out, we came out with like a very evergreen Lydia Shae shirt. It's just it was like we announced I started using the logo type for Lydia Shae.
Yeah.
And I wanted to put it on a shirt, and I didn't want to just by itself, so I kind of like did this little design around it. Those shirts, like, I think we ordered like 30 or something through this local screen printer, and we had no idea what to expect. We sold those first 30 so fast. And, like, you don't want to overestimate how much people want to support you.
No, you don't want leftover T-shirts.
But you don't want to, like, not recoup costs. Like, that's the worst case scenario. So then we ended up ordering a rerun of, like, another 30 shirts. And, like, people want them, and it's been really great. Like, we make way more money off of that than me playing solo gigs for $75 plus whatever I can make in tips, you know.
Which also, not that people haven't told you this before, you're way fucking better than $75. Those pieces of shit, not that we want to disrespect the venues that are bringing us in, but it's like, hey, there's free gigs, there's exposure gigs, and then there's fucking paying me. This is my hourly, and let's roll this thing out. Because you need to be able to afford your off time where you're doing things that you're passionate about. Like, I couldn't spend my whole Wednesday doing this show if I didn't have a gig tonight or a gig tomorrow to pay for my time to do so. And then you minimize cost around that. But, like, people don't understand how much the merchandise does play into what you're actually capable of doing, because nothing else has return on the financial investment. Especially not the music at this point. In terms of CDs, like, are you gonna do like the jewel case, really nice print?
We're not doing the jewel case. We're doing a sleeve.
Cool.
So honestly, again, just came down to costs. And the reason I would want to do the jewel case is actually not that expensive, but the whole point of me wanting to do the jewel case is to do like a multi-panel book, like a lyric book, because for me I'm so tied in the songwriting. Like, I would love to have all the lyrics laid out and design spreads for each of those songs, but it was so expensive. It was insane. So we're gonna do a sleeve. We had even discussed because, like, do people even want physical CDs? And I do have some people that do want physical CDs, but that was a conversation of, like, should we just create a printed book that has lyrics in it, and it's got a blurb about, inspiration for the song, the story behind the song, in the end, we just kind of it was on the chopping block in terms of what kind of merch are we going to produce and come out with. I would love to do that someday, but it's also hard to be like, will anyone care about this, or is this just I'm such a songwriter that like I would love this piece, but does anybody else? And
yeah. I've made some big compromises on CDs in particular because I used to do like a physical copy that gets shrink wrapped and sent out to me. And I recently just bought a CD duplicator, and I just buy blanks and I get stickers made, and I just run this thing down so I can make it for $1.25 a copy, and sell it for $5. And people are really supporting me by doing that.
Yeah.
Because it is a question of like, are you going to use a CD? But I always tell people, like, I want to be the one CD in your car. I want to be there every time your Bluetooth doesn't connect, every time your radio's fucked up. And you need to have multiple ways of people buying in. If you can't do the 25 for the T-shirt, can you do the 5 for the CD? Do you want to do 40 for the CD and the T-shirt because you want to be that nice about it? Go for it.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we're doing. Is like, there are people that will listen to the CD, especially like more personal family and friends in my life that definitely want it. But we're kind of bundling it with some other things as like a fun plus. To kind of take away. But perfect world, unlimited budget, wanted so bad to do vinyl. Because I'm a vinyl listener. I've been collecting vinyl since like early college, I think. I just love it. I love big artwork. And I think that's part of the designer in me. It's like, I love the big artwork. My husband's built us record shelves so we can like display different albums, like rotating, and I would love to do a vinyl, but holy crap, the costs are just like, I cannot justify them. Yeah.
And that's such a weird thing to, imagine there's a point in time where we're producing vinyl in almost every major city across the U.S. because it is such a highly desired way. You didn't have other physical copies. That was the number one way of distributing. Then we turned to cassettes, and these machines are junked. They are recycled. And now we're panicking because we don't have the machines to make these things. And when it came to, okay, you don't need a physical copy, you can have it on your phone. Which one do we want? Everyone said vinyl. It's like, we fucked up the production of this. Like, we are the ones that did this to ourselves.
Yeah.
But I will say there's a company that we worked with a number of times, and I just released the date for it's our least of all direct-to-vinyl sessions.
Okay.
So in April, we're going to go to Brooklyn, and you'll go into the studio where you can have people that will pre-order 1 song, 2 songs, 3 songs off your album. And you're going to do a distinct take of that song just for them.
Oh, that's cool.
So Susan has been kind enough to always order something off there. So I can say, hey, Susan, thanks for ordering this. This is take 3 of Love is Love. And then you give them a live recording of the song that's totally unique just to them. They'll produce it. They'll mail it out to them. You're still making money on the road, which is such a life send, especially in New York City where you're not going to make any money.
Yeah.
But it's a great way to do vinyl that's not you breaking your back to have physical copies of the album. They're just singles, and they've been really receptive to other artists that have gone that way. So if you ever consider it for your upcoming tour...
Yeah, that's cool, too, because, I mean, it wasn't even just... It's like I could find someone to do the vinyl and the pressing. It was like a completely different thing to find someone to do the sleeve and the printing.
Yeah.
And, like, the sleeve and printing had a 3-month lead time, and it's like, oh my gosh, like, why aren't you two doing this like all in one place? And different machines, different capabilities. So I think if we were ever going to do vinyl, I mean, maybe I would do a vinyl release after all of this and we're able to kind of recoup some costs, but I think more something like that would be the route.
And there's always going to be other options, and it'll get more prevalent as time goes on. Like Third Man Records, like Jack White's label, now produces a lot of albums in Detroit. And it's like, as you see brands around them take note of that and the machines become more available, it will become accessible again. But we all need to be realistic about what's the actual consumer populace, what's the minimum amount of copies made. Is the thing I want to keep in the back of my car ready to sell really going to be the wax? Because that's going to warp and have issues with it in time. There's going to be fails of this. Points of failure is something to consider in all of these.
And vinyl's heavy.
Yeah.
Lugging that around at every show, and you've got like a minimum of 1,000 count.
Yes, exactly.
It's just like... I already have enough stuff to lug around to play gigs. I don't need like a huge box of heavy vinyl. So.
Yeah. One thing I'd recommend that's been huge on my table is lighters. Lighters, and there's
Really?
a lot of dispensary supply companies that will do custom print lighters that I'll show you one in a second. It has my logo on the front. There's a QR code underneath the warning label, so when I sell my... I wait till I make the sale to pull off the warning label because I would never do that for the liability's sake.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
there's a way for someone to find me. I'm always going to end up in somebody's pocket. You're making sales that are mainly utilitarian, but they also have to do with your brand, and they'll always make it back to you.
I would have never thought about lighters.
They are fantastic. They sell really well.
They're small.
Yeah, they're small. They're easy to
carry.
produce. Yeah, they're like $1.25 pop. You can sell them for $5. You can sell them for $10 if you want. You know,
Yeah.
and people are always smoking something. You know, I don't care if you're heating up a spoon. You know, listen.
What happens with this lighter?
Exactly.
Is out
I
of
just
my
can't
hands.
sell them to kids. Okay, and I've learned
Yeah.
that the hard way because I've been selling bottle rockets at the table, and the kids are always interested.
That's too funny. Oh god.
Those companies, you can also buy rolling papers and have your brand on them. I've never gone that far because it's like I don't strictly want to attract the stoners, but I'm happy. I love the stoners. You keep coming to the show, you sweet people. But like,
yeah.
the lighters have just been an awesome call because they're recession proof too. Like you'll always be
That's
able
true.
to sell lighters. You know, when people are like, I'm never gonna use a CD. It's like, I know you like candles. I know you occasionally set the mood.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yes.
And you'll buy 4 at a time. So I would definitely recommend the company I use called Ganja Print. Thank you, Ganja Print. Yeah, they've been wonderful.
I'll have to check that out because I am always like interested in, we've done a bunch of stickers, but I've kind of found that stickers are best when they're given away for free.
Bingo.
Yeah. And like making the personal investment to be like, yeah, here, take some of these, like whatever. People, when they want to support us, like they'll buy a shirt over a sticker.
Yeah.
And it's like something they actually want. They want to wear it. They want to wear it to like watch us come play. Stickers kind of just like a little bit of a consolation prize.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and even the lighters, like it's low cost enough that you can give
Yeah.
those things away. And like sometimes, if the difference is between converting a listener and having them walk out of your life after they've already liked what you do,
Yeah.
it's worth a $1.25 investment. It's worth a $5 investment.
Yeah.
I've given strangers a hat just because they were losing their mind, and I'm like, I don't want you to forget about this.
Yeah.
So here's something.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's a hard side of merch too, because like every time you give a discount, you're losing a little bit of the profit potential. And what did you do this for? It's like to make up for the album you already sunk all this money into. So
Yeah, definitely. And I'm also like a huge people pleaser. So if I could, I would just give everybody our
Yeah.
stuff for free because I just like want you to be happy with it. But
that's an important part of having someone else work the table who knows why
Yeah.
this is important. And you're just there to meet people, and you're just there to give hugs and say thank yous and do all that stuff.
and it's so funny. I mean, I'm sure your wife is similar. My husband Zach is like, the biggest support. Thinks I'm amazing. He would charge $50 for my shirts. Like he's not gonna budge on it. He's like, this is what you're worth, and you need to ask for it.
Yeah, someone's walking away after buying a bunch. It's like, did you just tell them what our mortgage is? And it's like, yeah, fucking. It's like, you're worth it, baby.
Yeah. So it's just, it is always nice because like there's a lot of like imposter syndrome and in the music industry, like the sky's the limit. There's always going to be a better vocalist, songwriter, guitarist. You're never going to be the best person who's ever existed because one, it's subjective, and two, like tomorrow it'll be someone else. And with that is like this feeling of super inferiority of like, am I good enough to do this? Am I good enough to like promote myself in this way? Like I always feel weird about, should I tell people I'm a guitarist or not? Because I play guitar, but I don't want them to think that like I'm a guitarist, but am I selling myself short? And he is a great just temperature check of like helping reinforce the things I'm good at and like helping me feel confident, which if, I didn't have him like living alone with just my thoughts in my brain, I really don't know what I would do.
Yeah, and supportive spouses and partners are really hard to find in this because we never turn off. We never stop thinking about these things and listening to these things. And, You know, it's weird to watch your partner, you know, scream at photos of themselves for hours and just be dissatisfied with it, or to watch this, you know, eat away at a song for hours, or,
Yeah.
you know, my wife's dealing with me going through all this bullshit through TSA to get my guitar through, and it's just like,
Yeah.
she's like, could you have gone without it? It's like, no, I know you, and I know that would be an uncomfortable situation. So
Yeah.
the sacrifices made by the people that love us for us to do this is an immensely potent thing. That anytime you can say, thank you, I love you, honey. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, seriously. I am gonna have to pick your brain about taking a guitar through TSA. I've not been brave enough.
It takes
to
the right
do
case.
that.
Yeah.
I need a new case. So I'm in the market, but I have a wedding in April that I'm playing in Florida. And I'm like, are we going to drive to halfway down Florida? It's like 15 hours.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. We might do the drive. But
I've done that drive enough times to say, like, it's pretty at times. It's pretty much all 75. Like, you're going to be okay. But if you need to fly, my recommendations would be mono cases, or cases that have is a soft case with a neck brace on it. You do a hard shell case, there's no wiggle room. This thing's not going to take impact. It is going to either resist it or it's going to snap that bitch.
Yeah.
And then if it's your dad's guitar that you're sentimental about, don't fly with it.
Okay.
Get a different guitar that is your day-to-day beater, because I've retired guitars after a certain point because I did damage to them. It's like, I only buy guitars I'm going to keep for life at this point. Even my beaters have sentimental value to me. But some I'm willing to lose and some I'm not. So when I went to the beach, it's like, oh, I take my nylon that already has cracks in it. I have this one case I trust to fly with. The mono creator cases are fantastic, and you'll never regret that investment. And then fly Delta. You don't fly United.
Oh, I've learned that just as a human on a plane.
Yeah.
I'm like purely Delta at this point.
Yeah. And then plane side check it. When you get up, you get the pink tag. Don't try to put it in overhead. You can put it in the closet. You know, when you get on, they'll have a little closet there that you could.
Okay. Because I saw Delta said that, like, you can take it as a carry-on. And they said guitars, and I was like, where are they putting that? But
yeah. So your backpack's your personal item. You're going to slip that under the seat, and then your guitar is going to be your carry-on. And I always ask for the pink tag because I don't want to worry about, oh, I'm boarding right now. There's 20 people behind me, and I'm
you've got
cramming
a guitar.
this. Yeah, I'm pushing in the closet. Yeah. That just doesn't feel worth it to me. So
yeah, plane side checking too. That's great because I do that all the time with my bag. Anymore, every time I'm on a flight, it's overbooked, it's full, there's not enough space. Like, check it, and I just always plane side check it.
Yeah, but then also to be able to take a guitar to the gate with you, it's like, when I'm sitting around, I go noodling, you know, like and it's not catfish. I'm writing songs for no reason, okay?
Yeah, I am a get to the airport 2 hours early kind of person.
Nerd.
Because have you ever missed a flight?
Yeah.
It's just simply not worth it.
Yeah, like the first time my wife went on a vacation with my family, she got down there before I did. And I got too high before I went to the airport. And I'm sitting at the wrong gate reading a book with headphones in.
Oh my god!
And I keep looking around, I'm like, no one's here and the TV's not on. That's weird. And I look like catty corner, and it's where I'm supposed to be going, and there's no one over there.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
Had to call her and tell her about my shame, and then it is what it is.
It's such a pain to like rebook and like make another flight.
It's so embarrassing too.
It's so embarrassing, yeah. And I'm like, I get there 2 hours early and I read a book.
Yeah.
You know? I'm like I'm doing something while I'm sitting there waiting. But so yeah, having your guitar would be a nice little thing.
Yes, absolutely. And just investing in a guitar that you understand the circumstances you put it through. It's like, I got my electrics that I love to travel with, but I just couldn't take it to New York with me because I'm terrified. You know, what if something did? So accepting the what ifs around certain piece of equipment versus non-negotiables on others, like, it's just good to prepare yourself with that kind of litter of, these are my kids, I can go to the chopping block. Like, I could watch this thing get crushed by a bag boy, you know, like, and that's, it is what it is.
Yeah, yeah. That is, this is right now, my sole acoustic guitar. I've been really, really wanting to buy like a built-in acoustic electric. I have an electric pickup in this, but it didn't originally have it. And it's just one of those things where like I also want to buy a new keyboard, and all of that right now is like, well, we'll think about that after this album's done being made.
Yes, absolutely. And you can always borrow those things. Like
Yeah.
there's friends all over the place. I would say like, okay, you gotta send one of those through. Like this is the one. Go ahead. You know.
Yeah, that's true. And that's like another back to the conversation of like musician friends and what we have to offer each other. Like I mentioned, I don't have much gear. I'm not a very good in that regard, but I will offer to design promo materials for things.
Totally. Well, and you're freelance now, so like, please plug it. Like, tell them where they should go if they want to get your design work and help.
Yeah. So right now, I actually am in this odd position where I am transitioning into a role now. It was very much unexpected. I had gone freelance with the intention of like I have to get out of agency life. It's too demanding. And it does not allow me the time to focus on priorities outside of a 9 to 5 because it wasn't a 9 to 5. It was a 9 to whenever on last minute's notice, and probably also a Saturday, Sunday on a whim. And it was just like, I need something more consistent because I'm making commitments to gigs and I'm doing shows. And like, I was waking up at 6 a.m. to cram a few more hours of work in to try to get off on a normal hour so that I could leave and go play a show at Arnold's or whatever. And it's just like, it was just too much. I was like running myself ragged, especially with this project. So I was like, I talked it over with my husband and was like, can I go freelance? Can we afford for me to just quit my job and try to get some work? And it worked out. Like I was able to get work. It took about 2 months to really get like a full amount of client work. But it did work and it was working. And meanwhile, this like corporate gig that I've been applying to this place for like 3 years. I feel like just, you see it, you send it in. And I think, if I'm going to go in-house, which in-house is like a term for when you're not at a design agency, you're at a company that has like designers inside. So they function more like a regular 9 to 5 typically. People usually do it when they're like sick and burnt out from agency culture and they want to have kids or something.
Yeah.
But like for me, I want to make music babies. So so I was like, I'm looking for more work-life balance. So that I can go exhaust myself through other creative exploits. And I eventually got that call. And I was kind of like, all right, whatever. I'll do this interview. I'm not going to get it. These never go anywhere. I've done this a million times, except this time it actually did. And I ended up getting the gig. So I'm actually in the process of transitioning out of freelance work and moving into a gig, which I start like this February 12th or something.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just this weird time where I was talking to Zach about it and I was like, I don't know, this isn't really what the plan was. What if it sucks? What if it's not everything that it's supposed to be? And he was like, well, you just quit. And like, you can freelance. So it wasn't working. You go back to freelance. And that's like a true testament to having like a super supportive partner because, that means that he's bearing the brunt of like financial accountability with our household when I'm kind of jumping around and spending extra money on music and all that, which I've tried to keep music a self-funded project. Like every dollar I've made has gone back into music because I'm, lucky to be able to have this other skill, which is design, to be able to like pay the bills. But that's recently hit a tipping point where we're investing more into it than I'm able to gig out because I don't have the availability to gig because I'm spending nights in the studio. And I just hit this dead space in winter. Like a lot of the places that normally book aren't as popular because it's winter, porches are closed, football's happening, and they're just like not really doing much stuff until the spring. So it's kind of a combination of I didn't really gig at all in January at my usual spots. I've played like some rounds. So I'm not having extra money come in from music, and I'm spending more than ever to try to finish this album.
Yeah, and that's a daunting part of that January to April kind of feel, because we all told ourselves during the off season, I'm going to do this. But there is that, there's no private events. A lot of the gigs aren't there. Your band still wants to be working as well. It's like a lot of things to consider in that, and you do need to have your freelance opportunities ready to go. Whether you're, like I said, I'm going to produce for some buddies. Like, I'm super excited about that, and have it land in my slow season is the only way it can work with the schedule. But it also helps me to be able to go in my own pursuits. So knowing what you're capable of. Here's a question for you about graphic design. Do you think that's a field that requires a degree for most people? No. And
it is required. It does not need to be required.
Yeah.
Is what I mean.
But for like freelancers specifically.
No.
And then how do you recommend that someone starts to hone that skill and look for, because obviously you can't take the work that an agency could unless you're a former agency employed freelancer. It's like you're capable of the same client load as anyone that has a more formal obligation to a company, but you've done this thing.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly would look at it very, very similarly to people who teach themselves Logic and recording. You kind of do it out of necessity, and then you know enough to become dangerous is like step 2. And then step 3 is actually know what you're doing. And then step 4 is I need to be charging for my services. I am knowledgeable. With graphic design, it's this unfortunate, I can harp on the higher education system forever, even though I went through the whole thing. Graphic design is like a typical trade. It, in my opinion, is something that should be made more accessible by making it less of a 4-year degree and more of like an apprenticeship. It requires expensive software. It requires an expensive laptop. And those are high barriers to entry for people who either don't know about the field or don't have the family background that can just fund that for you. So it's difficult enough without the added constraint of a 4-year degree. And also, there are people that go through and how do you fail at a subjective degree? Have you ever heard of anyone failing at a studio art degree? No, maybe you're not the best in class, but no one's gonna flunk you if you try hard enough. So there's even a lack of quality control in a 4-year degree program, where you can trust to an extent, that this person's had training and they've gotten the hours and they had the experience. But at the end of the day, everyone's looking at your portfolio and you're not making it past what your portfolio shows. So then you start to ask, what's the point? So for me, as a recommendation for someone who maybe doesn't want to go the traditional education route, doesn't want to go through college, or doesn't even have the money to maybe do that. And maybe you've I already went to college and I have enough debt and I'm not even using that as a secondary skill. Unfortunately, Adobe Creative Suite is the devil we know.
Subscription based.
I know, you have to have that. It's the expectation, but the benefit is that no one's gonna ask for you to know anything else. I think it's $54.99 a month. It's painful.
Yeah, that's pretty steep.
It's steep, but it is 100% necessary, and you will use it. So at least when you buy the suite, you're getting everything in the suite. So it's Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator, which are Lightroom. You're getting Premiere. You're getting all this other stuff that I've never even heard of and will never use. But it's all included in this big bundle. But Photoshop and Illustrator, I would say, are primarily the 2 programs to tinker with, spend some time with, look up your local library. I know Cincinnati Library offers free Lynda courses if you have a library card. The library, plug the library, tons of resources there.
The makerspace where you can make pens.
The makerspace, utilize your libraries, people.
Yeah.
And you can go on to Lynda and just watch tons of quality controlled tutorials on how to learn these softwares and use them, and then start making stuff. Make stuff for free for some musicians to like get some stuff under your belt. Make some like, fake posters. Like come up with all sorts, just like tinker in it and learn the programs. And then, once you get to a certain stage, like charge someone $50 here, $50 there. And then that's like, you'll get better and better. And then you'll eventually build a proficiency. Like one of the most successful freelance designers I know has a vocal degree and is self-taught and now has his own company, and his wife is like an actress, and he is like the breadwinner for this family and is doing awesome. And he does not have a degree. And because once you realize in the industry, you don't care if someone has a degree if they're good enough. Like, who cares? Like, you're here for the end result anyway, and like what it's like to work with that person. So that's why I'm like, you do not need a degree.
Yeah. Well, I think, speaking to the ways that people can fund their lifestyle and their career and fully immerse themselves in their creative ability rather than just being a body in a field.
Yeah.
It's important for people. And clearly the drive that makes you a great graphic designer is the drive that gets you up in the middle of the night about songs, and the drive that makes you finish a spreadsheet so you're 97% there, and we're going to kick the door in tomorrow because we got places to be and things to do.
Yeah.
So you got me fired up today, Lydia. You really did, and I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, of course.
Is there anything else you'd like to plug before we get out of here?
Oh, I mean, I'll just say right now I've got a single out. Comfort Queen is on streaming everywhere. We've got the album release show. My album Decade Diaries will be available everywhere March 8th. Shows at Woodward Theater, same day. Doors open at 7, shows at 8.
Cool. Daniel Noel on the bill. Tell me the Loreleis. That's going to be a great show. And then a following tour after that. So we'll make sure we promote that.
Yeah, keep an eye out. So we hopefully will get some stuff in the works, get some dates booked, and get something worked up.
Yeah, and hopefully we can get you on the Muse sometime soon.
Of course. Absolutely.
All right, my friends, thanks for watching. We'll have another stream coming up with the Carriers in a little bit, and then my man Mike Heffron. So stick around. Peace, players.